You're sitting in your backyard on a quiet October evening in 2024 telescope pointed at the stars, when you notice something that shouldn't be there. A faint dot moving against the cosmic backdrop faster than it should, stranger than anything you've seen before. You check your coordinates 3 times, you run the numbers again, and that's when the feeling hits you. This isn't just another space rock drifting through our solar system. This is 3I/Atlas, and what you're about to discover will fundamentally change how you see the universe. Because here's the thing, nobody tells you about interstellar objects. They're not supposed to behave like this. They don't accelerate without reason. They don't emit signals. And they definitely don't arrive in formation. But 3I/Atlas does all of these things. The scientific community called it an anomaly. But when you step back and look at the big picture, really look at it, you'll realize we've been asking the wrong questions this entire time. The terrifying part isn't what 3I/Atlas is, it's what it means. If you're the kind of person who loses sleep over questions like these, you're in the right place. Subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss what comes next. And if tonight's story gives you that feeling, that cosmic vertigo, leave a like to help others find it too. Now grab something warm to drink, turn down those lights, and let's dive into this together. It starts the way most great discoveries do, with someone who wasn't supposed to find anything at all. September 28th, 2024. You're not at some billion-dollar observatory. You're in your driveway in suburban Arizona with a telescope you bought on sale 3 years ago. The kind of setup that makes professional astronomers smile politely and change the subject. But tonight, you're not trying to impress anyone. You're just doing what you've done 100 times before scanning the ecliptic plane, logging coordinates, maybe catching a glimpse of something interesting to share on the amateur astronomy forums later. Then you see it. At first, it's nothing. A pixel, a glitch, maybe. Your screen shows a faint dot that shouldn't be moving that fast. You blink, check your calibration. The dot is still there, still moving. You pull up your star charts, cross-reference the coordinates, nothing scheduled, no known asteroids in that trajectory, no comets, no satellites. Your hands are shaking now as you type the coordinates into the Minor Planet Center's database. The search comes back empty. You try NASA's Small Body Database, empty. ESA's Near-Earth Object Coordination Center. Nothing. That's when it hits you. You might be looking at something that nobody else has seen yet. You do what any rational person would do. You assume you're wrong. You spend the next 47 minutes trying to prove yourself wrong. You recalibrate. You check for atmospheric distortion. You even call your friend in New Mexico to see if she can spot it from her location. She can. Same coordinates, same impossible speed. By 11:47 p.m., you're filling out the discovery report form with trembling fingers. By 2:13 a.m., your phone is ringing. It's an unlisted number. The voice on the other end identifies herself as Dr. Sarah Chen from NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies. She asks you very calmly, very professionally, if you can keep your telescope trained on those exact coordinates for the next 6 hours. She asks if you told anyone else. She asks if you understand what you might be looking at. You don't? Not yet. Within 18 hours, every major observatory in the world has eyes on your discovery. The International Astronomical Union assigns it a designation 3I/Atlas. The 3I means it's only the 3rd confirmed interstellar object ever detected entering our solar system. Oumuamua was first in 2017, Comet Borisov was second in 2019. Now this. But here's where your story diverges from those earlier discoveries. Oumuamua took 6 weeks before anyone realized it was interstellar. Borisov took 3 weeks, with 3I/Atlas. The scientific community knew within 6 hours, not because the technology got better, but because 3I/Atlas announced itself. Let me paint you the picture that appeared on observatory screens worldwide on September 29th, 2024. 3I/Atlas was approaching from the direction of the constellation Perseus at 87 kilometers per second, that's 194,000 miles per hour, or about 0.03% the speed of light. Fast, but not unprecedented. Oumuamua clocked in at 87.3 kilometers per second. Borisov was slower at 33 kilometers per second. So far, nothing alarming. Then the trajectory analysis came back. Dr. Marcus Webb, the orbital dynamics specialist at ESA, was the first to notice. He ran the calculations 3 times, certain his software had glitched. It hadn't. 3I/Atlas wasn't following a hyperbolic trajectory, the standard path for interstellar objects slingshotting through a solar system. Instead, it was on what's called a capture orbit. It was slowing down. Objects don't do that, Webb told a hastily assembled press conference 2 days later, his usual composure cracking just slightly. When something is travelling through interstellar space and encounters a gravitational field, it accelerates, whips around and leaves. It doesn't break. It can't break. Unless... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Everyone in that room understood the implication. Natural objects don't have brakes. But wait, maybe it's outgassing. Right. That's what happened with Oumuamua. The sun heats up the object. Frozen gases vent into space, creating a tiny rocket effect that alters the trajectory. Problem solved. Mystery explained. Everyone goes home, except 3I/Atlas wasn't outgassing. The Hubble Space Telescope does hastily redirected to observe the object, detected no coma, no cloud of gas and dust that would indicate outgassing. The James Webb Space Telescope's infrared instruments found no thermal signature consistent with sublimating ice. Spectroscopic analysis showed no chemical traces in its wake. It was slowing down with no visible means of propulsion. Think about that for a second. Really think about it. An object roughly 400 meters across, about the size of 4 football fields, travelling through the vacuum of space at 194,000 miles per hour is decelerating. Not because it's hitting anything, not because it's venting gas, just slowing down. By October 3rd, 3I/Atlas had shed 12% of its velocity. That's 23,280 miles per hour, lost with no explanation that fits our physics textbooks. The scientific papers started pouring in. Possible dark matter interaction effects on interstellar object trajectories. Re-examining solar wind pressure on non-spherical bodies. Gravitational anomalies in the outer solar system. Each paper was basically a very polite way of saying, we have no idea what's happening, but here's our best guess. The media, of course, went where the media always goes. Alien probe enters solar systems, screamed the headlines. Scientists baffled by mysterious space object. The usual circus. NASA held daily briefings trying to tamp down speculation, repeating the same mantra. We're collecting data. It's premature to draw conclusions. Natural phenomena can appear anomalous until properly understood. But you knew something the public didn't, because you were still watching. Every night you pointed your modest telescope at 3I/Atlas, logging its position, tracking its journey, and you noticed something the big observatories hadn't reported yet. It wasn't just slowing down randomly, it was adjusting. Small course corrections, tiny, barely perceptible changes in trajectory that didn't match gravitational influences. You documented 17 distinct maneuvers over 12 days. Each one subtle enough to dismiss individually, but together they formed a pattern. 3I/Atlas was navigating. You sent your data to Dr. Chen. She called you back within an hour. How many people have you shown this to? Just you replied. Keep it that way, she said. For now. That was October 15th. On October 16th, every major government space agency simultaneously announced an international collaborative observation campaign. On October 17th, the Arecibo replacement facility in China, which officially wasn't operational yet, suddenly went online and trained its massive dish toward 3I/8 lace. On October 18th, the U.S. Space Force quietly launched 3 classified payloads on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy. Something had changed. The narrative had shifted from interesting anomaly to something else entirely. You could feel it in the way Chen's emails became shorter, more formal, in the way your forum posts about 3I/8 kept getting mysteriously moderated, in the way that CNN stopped covering the story, replaced by absolute radio silence from mainstream media. Have you ever felt like you're watching something important unfold, but you're the only one allowed to see it? That's where you are now. October 23rd, your telescope is trained on coordinates that update every 6 hours, sent to you encoded emails from an address you can't reply to. You're tracking an object that officially is just under routine observation, but unofficially has mobilized the entire planet's space infrastructure. And then, on October 24th at 3:42 a.m, your radio equipment picks up something it shouldn't, a signal, not from Earth, from 3I/Atlas itself. But here's the thing that makes your blood run cold as you sit there in your driveway, headphones on, listening to the static resolve into pattern. This isn't a signal meant for us. The frequency, the modulation, the packet structure, it's all wrong for communication with Earth. Doctor, Chen will confirm this 6 hours later when you send her the recording. This is a beacon, a transmission being broadcast outward, away from our solar system, back toward the direction 3I/8 came from. It's not saying hello. It's saying I've arrived. And if something arrived, what else is coming? The recording sits on your computer like a coiled snake. You've listened to it 43 times now, and each playback makes the hair on your neck stand up a little straighter. It's October 25th, 4:17 a.m, and you haven't slept. You can't sleep. Because once you run the numbers on what you're hearing, you realise the universe just got a lot smaller and a lot more crowded. Let me walk you through what happens when you feed that signal into analysis software. The transmission lasts exactly 1.7 seconds. It repeats every 11 minutes and 43 seconds with atomic clock precision. The frequency is 420 MHz, the hydrogen line. The same frequency SETI has been listening to for decades, because any civilization that understands radio astronomy would recognize it as the universal hello frequency. But this isn't a greeting, this is mathematics. You start with the basics. Fast Fourier transform analysis to break down the frequency components. The signal isn't just a tone, it's layered. 12 distinct carrier frequencies, each one a prime number multiple of the base frequency, 1420 MHz, 2840 MHz, 4260 MHz. The pattern continues up to 17040 meets. Prime numbers, the universe's way of saying this isn't random. But it's what those frequencies are carrying that makes your hand shake as you type. Each frequency band contains a data stream. When you extract and combine them, you get a 3-dimensional mathematical structure. Not a picture, not a message. Coordinate system, doctor. Chen calls you at 6:33 a.m. You didn't send her your analysis yet. Somehow, she already knows. You mapped it, she says. It's not a question. I mapped it. You confirm. Chen, what am I looking at? There's a long pause. You hear her breathing on the other end of the line. When she speaks again, her voice has changed. Less scientist, more human being confronting something that shouldn't exist. You're looking at a celestial navigation chart, she says. 3I/Atlas is broadcasting its position, velocity, and trajectory using our own star field as reference points. But here's what's keeping me up at night. The precision is impossible. She's right. You've seen the numbers. The positional accuracy in that signal resolves down to sub-arc second precision across distances measured in light years. To put that in perspective, that's like standing in New York and describing the exact position of a grain of sand in Tokyo, accounting for the Earth's rotation, orbital mechanics, and relativistic effects. No natural phenomenon does this, and no human technology does this either. There's more, Chen continues. MIT ran the signal through their quantum analysis lab. The data packets are using error correction codes that we didn't invent until 2019. They're using Reed-Solomon encoding with a twist we haven't figured out yet. Whoever whatever sent this signal knows information theory at a level that matches or exceeds our best work. You pull up the visualization on your screen. The three-dimensional star map reconstructed from the signal rotates slowly, each point of light precisely plotted. Chen, why broadcast this at all if you're already here? What's the point of announcing your position? That's the question, isn't it? She sounds tired. You imagine she looks how you feel coffee-wired and reality-bent. Unless you're not announcing your position to us. Unless there are others who need to know where you are. The implication hangs in the air like smoke. Over the next 72 hours, observatories worldwide pivot to a new priority. They're not just watching 3i/Atlas anymore. They're watching everything. The entire sky becomes a grid, each sector assigned to the different facility. Mauna Kea in Hawaii, the Very Large Array in New Mexico, the Square Kilometre Array in South Africa, ALMA in Chile, every major radio telescope on Earth, all suddenly coordinated in a search pattern that makes perfect sense once you understand what they're looking for. They're waiting for something to answer back. You're part of this now, though you never asked to be. Your backyard setup has been upgraded. On October 27th, a truck arrives with equipment that the delivery manifest describes as educational astronomy materials. The two people who install it don't look like delivery drivers. They look like the kind of people who don't exist on organisational charts. Your modest telescope is now connected to signal processing equipment that definitely doesn't come from the consumer market. You have direct encrypted links to 3 university astronomy departments and 1 government server with no identifying information. Your job, explained by a man who never gave you his name. Watch your sector. Report anything that moves wrong or sounds wrong. How will I know if it's wrong, you ask? He looks at you with the expression of someone who's already seen it. You'll know. October 29th. You're scanning your assigned coordinates, a patch of sky roughly 15 degrees across, centred on the constellation Andromeda when the software alerts you to something anomalous. Not a signal this time. Something visual. There's a star that shouldn't be moving. Except it is barely a positional shift of 0.043 arcseconds over 6 hours. That's roughly equivalent to watching a dime move 1 inch across a table in Dallas while you're standing in Seattle. Invisible to the naked eye. Meaningless to casual observation. But you're not casually observing anymore. You run the parallax calculations. This object is close, cosmically speaking, roughly 2.3 AU from Earth. That's 215 million miles, about twice the distance between Earth and the Sun. Still comfortably in the outer solar system, but closer than Saturn. You check historical data. This object wasn't there 3 weeks ago. Not in any catalogue, not in any survey. It just appeared. You tag it, send the coordinates up the chain. Wait, the response comes back in 8 minutes. Keep watching. Log all positional data. Do not, and this part is in capital letters, do not discuss this observation with anyone outside the network. By November 2nd, your solitary discovery has become 17 objects. 17 stars that aren't stars, scattered across a 90-degree arc of sky, all exhibiting the same barely perceptible motion. All of them appeared in the observational record between October 23rd and November 1st. All of them are moving in formation. Doctor. Chen doesn't call anymore. She visits, shows up at your house at 11 p.m. on November 3rd with a laptop and a bottle of whiskey that you both need. She spreads orbital projection models across your kitchen table like a general planning a campaign. "We've got 47 now," she says, worldwide. Every major observatory has found them. They're using the same trajectory optimization as 3I/Atlas. Same deceleration profile, same precision. She pulls up a visualization. It takes your breath away. 47 objects, plotted in three-dimensional space relative to our solar system. They're not scattered randomly. They're arranged in a geometric pattern. A polyhedron, specifically a truncated icosahedron the same shape as a soccer ball, with 12 pentagonal faces and 20 hexagonal faces. "They're building a structure," you whisper. "They're building a net," Chen corrects. She zooms out the visualization. The scale changes. Your perspective shifts. Each object is a node. The spacing is precise. Each one is equidistant from its nearest neighbours, roughly 0.8 AU apart. When they reach final position, they'll form a complete geodesic sphere around our solar system with a radius of approximately 45 AU. You do the math. 45 AU is just beyond Pluto's orbit. They're surrounding us. That's one interpretation. She takes a drink. The other interpretation is that they're forming a perimeter, a boundary. The question is whether they're keeping something out or keeping us in. The technical analysis over the next week reveals details that make both interpretations equally terrifying. Each object is approximately 500 meters in diameter. Spectroscopic analysis shows they're not made of rock, ice, or metal, at least not any composition that matches our databases. The light reflection patterns are wrong. Too smooth, too uniform. Doctor. James Patterson at Caltech runs thermal imaging analysis. Normal objects in space asteroids, comets, spacecraft have temperature variations across their surface. Sun-facing sides get hot. Shadow sides freeze. These objects maintain uniform temperature across their entire surface area. Always exactly 2.7 Kelvin, the temperature of the cosmic microwave background. They're not reflecting heat, Patterson publishes in a Rush paper that gets immediately classified. They're matching the background temperature of space itself. They're camouflaged. Which raises the obvious question, how long have they been there before we noticed you start pulling archival data? Old sky surveys, photographic plates from the 1990s, digital surveys from the early 2000s. You're looking for ghosts. For things that might have been dismissed as sensor noise, cataloguing errors, or that weird moments that never got investigated. November 8th, you find one. A digital sky survey from 2011 shows a positional anomaly in the same region where one of the current objects sits. The notation in the log reads possible catalogue error. Object position inconsistent with proper motion, flagged for review. No follow-up was ever done. You find another from 2015 and another from 2018, 6 total scattered across different surveys, different years, different observers, all dismissed, all forgotten. They've been arriving for at least 14 years. You tell Chen when she comes by that evening, maybe longer. We just weren't looking in the right way. She nods slowly, like she's been expecting this. The physics team at JPL ran predictive models, based on current velocity and deceleration profiles. Most of these objects started their journey at least 50 years ago, some possibly longer. 50 years, 1974, before Voyager, before the internet. These objects were launched toward our solar system when humans were barely capable of landing on the moon. But that's not the scary part, Chen continues. She pulls up another model. The scary part is the precision, to arrive at these exact coordinates, at these exact times, Forming this exact geometry, they had to know where our solar system would be. They had to account for the sun's movement through the galaxy, the planets' positions, gravitational perturbations from nearby stars. They calculated a 50-year trajectory across interstellar space with a margin of error measured in kilometers. You stare at the model. 47 objects. 47 flight paths converging on our solar system from 47 different origin points, all timed to arrive within a 3-week window. This wasn't exploration, you say quietly. This was planned. This was executed, Chen corrects. Like a military operation, first, you send in reconnaissance that's 3i/Atlas. It announces itself, draws attention, broadcast position. While everyone's looking at it, the rest of the fleet assumes position. By the time we notice, they're already in place. You think about what comes next in military operations, after reconnaissance, after positioning. Chen, what's the deployment timeline? She shows you the projection. Current velocity profiles suggest all 47 objects will reach their final positions in the geometric sphere by February 2025. Less than 4 months from now. And then what happens? She closes her laptop, looks at you with eyes that have seen too many scenarios modelled, too many outcomes calculated. Then we find out why they're here. Or more accurately, we find out what happens when a 47-node array goes active around an inhabited solar system. You walk outside after she leaves. It's a clear night. You can see the Milky Way stretching overhead, that familiar river of light you've gazed at your entire life. Somewhere up there, invisible to your eyes, 47 objects are gliding into position with mathematical precision. You think about the signal from 3i/Atlas, still broadcasting every 11 minutes and 43 seconds, still announcing I've arrived, and you wonder not for the first time, but with growing certainty if anyone out there is listening. If something else is coming, if that net being woven around our solar system's meant to catch something trying to get in, or to trap something that's already here. November 12th, 2024. You're about to learn that the universe has a sense of humour, a dark one. The signal changes. Not 3i/Atlas that's still broadcasting its metronomic beacon every 11 minutes and 43 seconds like clockwork. This is something new. Something that makes every assumption you've built over the past 6 weeks crumble like sand. It starts at 2:47 a.m. Your equipment picks up a transmission on a frequency you've never monitored before because, frankly, nobody monitors it. It's in the K-band range. Around 32 gigahertz, the same frequency that 5G cell towers use. Which is weird, because interstellar objects aren't supposed to know about our telecommunications infrastructure. The signal is short, exactly 0.3 seconds. But in that third of a second, it transmits more data than your entire broadband connection could handle in an hour. You record it, run it through your analysis software. The computer churns for 6 minutes, an eternity in processing time before spitting out results that make you check if you're still dreaming. It's not code. It's not mathematics. It's not the elegant abstraction of the first signal. It's English. Specifically, it's a compressed data packet containing 47,000 words of text in English, along with corresponding translations in Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, Hindi, and Russian, the 5 most spoken languages on Earth. The formatting is perfect. The grammar is flawless. The content is... You have to read it 3 times before you accept what you're seeing. It's an instruction manual. Protocol for Contact, a Guide for Homo Sapiens reads the title. You're not making this up. That's what it actually says. You call Chen. She doesn't answer. You call again, straight to voicemail. You send an encrypted email with the file attached. Then you do what any rational person would do when aliens send you an instruction manual. At 2:47 in the morning you start reading. The document is structured like a technical specification. Section 1. Acknowledgement of receipt. Section 2. Explanation of current circumstance. Section 3. Required human response parameters. There are footnotes, there are diagrams, there's even a FAQ section at the end. This is the part where you start laughing. Not because it's funny, though. There's something absurdly hilarious about aliens, including an FAQ, but because your brain doesn't know how else to process what you're reading. Section 2, paragraph 4. The array of 47 monitoring stations currently establishing orbital positions around your star system represents a standard containment protocol activated in response to detected quantum anomalies originating from your planetary surface. This is not an invasion. This is a quarantine. Quarantine, you read that word 5 times, 10 times. It doesn't change. Section 2, paragraph 7. Your species achieved quantum coherence manipulation in laboratory conditions on September 14th, 2024. This event triggered automated detection systems positioned throughout this galactic sector. The energy signature produced was equivalent to, in terms your physics community would understand, ringing a bell that can be heard across 10,000 light years. September 14th. You pull up your news archives. That was the day researchers at CERN announced a breakthrough in quantum computing. Something about maintaining quantum entanglement across unprecedented distances. The paper was technical, dense, and mostly ignored by mainstream media because it seemed like incremental progress. Apparently, it wasn't incremental to everyone. Section 2, paragraph 9. Quantum coherence manipulation at scales sufficient to produce detectable signatures represents a Category 4 existential risk under Galactic Accord 7394. Species reaching this technological threshold without proper safeguards have a 94.7% probability of causing cascading reality collapse within their local space-time region. Your containment is necessary to prevent this outcome. You stop reading, stand up, walk around your house, pour coffee you don't drink, sit back down, keep reading. The document explains in the kind of patient, slightly condescending tone you'd use with a child playing with matches that humanity has stumbled into something dangerous. Quantum entanglement, when scaled up, doesn't just allow for faster-than-light communication. It allows for what the document calls causal tampering, the ability to affect events in the past by manipulating quantum states in the present. Think of your space-time as a fabric. Section 2, paragraph 15 explains, quantum coherence at scale is like pulling a single thread. Pull gently and the thread comes free. Pull too hard and the entire fabric unravels. Your September 14th experiment pulled hard enough that we heard the fabric begin to tear. The document includes a list of 37 civilizations that achieved quantum coherence and subsequently experienced uncontrolled temporal paradox, cascades resulting in retroactive causality collapse. The list is in chronological order, or what passes for chronological when you're talking about civilizations that accidentally erased their own pasts. There's case study. Civilization 19. Achieved quantum coherence equivalent to human year 2024 levels in their year 441 of recorded history. Within 6.3 local years, experimental applications of the technology created a causality loop that propagated backward through their timeline. Observer records indicate civilization simply ceased to exist across all temporal coordinates. No ruins, no artifacts, no fossil record. It is as though they never were. You need air. You go outside and it's 4:23 a.m. now. The stars are still there, which is somehow reassuring. You half expected them to have disappeared, given what you're reading. Your phone buzzes. It's Chen, finally. You got it too, she says. Everyone got it. You reply, didn't they? Everyone with the right equipment, roughly 2,000 people worldwide. Observatories, research facilities, government installations, and amateur astronomers with suspiciously advanced equipment. She means you. Chen, is this real? Please tell me this is some elaborate hoax, some viral marketing campaign for a movie. MIT verified the transmission source. It originated from 3I/Atlas. The Chinese confirmed it. The ESA confirmed it. Unless every major space agency on Earth is collaborating on the same hoax, which, she laughs, but there's no humour in it, would require more international cooperation than we've ever achieved. So yeah, it's real. They're quarantining us, you say. They're trying to prevent us from accidentally deleting ourselves from reality, she corrects. There's a difference. You go back inside, read more. Section 3 is where things get practical and weird. Required human response parameters lays out what humanity needs to do. First, immediate cessation of all quantum coherence experiments above a specific threshold. The threshold is described in technical terms that would take a physics PhD to pass, but the document helpfully includes a simplified version. If your experiment requires more than 1000 simultaneously entangled qubits, stop. Second, cooperation with the containment array during its monitoring phase, which is projected to last a minimum of 50 Earth years. The document assures readers this is for humanity's benefit. Think of this as a safety period. A chance for your species to develop the theoretical framework necessary to use quantum coherence without existential risk. Third, and this is the part that makes your blood run cold, mandatory reporting of any temporal anomalies detected by human observers. The document provides examples, objects appearing or disappearing without explanation, memories that conflict with recorded history, physical laws behaving inconsistently. Early detection of causality corruption is essential for containment. Section 3, paragraph 23 states, if you observe reality behaving incorrectly, report it immediately to your scientific institutions. There's an appendix, Appendix C, why you can trust this information. It's surprisingly philosophical. The entities behind this, they never call themselves aliens or extraterrestrials. Just monitors explain that they've done this 847 times before. They've contained 847 emerging technological civilizations that reached the quantum coherence threshold. Of those, 109 survived their containment period and graduated to what's called Category 5 spatial citizens with full access to galactic infrastructure. 738 didn't make it. Not because the monitors failed, but because the civilizations in question couldn't stop experimenting with forces they didn't understand. Some species, Appendix C notes sadly, insist on pulling the thread even when warned about the consequences. The FAQ section at the end is where you find the question that's been burning in your mind. Q. How long have you been watching us? A direct observation began in your year 1945 following the first atomic detonation. Passive monitoring extends back approximately 127,000 years. You're not the first intelligent species to evolve on your planet. You're the first to survive long enough to develop technology. You read that answer 4 times. Not the first intelligent species on Earth, just the first to survive. The FAQ doesn't elaborate. It doesn't need to. The implication hangs there like a knife. By 6:00 a.m. The world knows. The document was transmitted to 2000 receivers simultaneously, and within hours, it's on every major news site, every social media platform, every government briefing. There's no way to contain it, no way to spin it. Aliens are real. They're here, and they've put humanity in time out. The reaction is not what you'd expect. There's no mass panic, no looting, no end-of-the-world scenarios. Instead, there's this weird collective moment of, like humanity looked up, saw the cosmic parent standing there with arms crossed, and collectively shrugged. Maybe it's because the message is so reasonable, so bureaucratic. These aren't conquerors or destroyers. They're cosmic safety inspectors. They've even provided a contact email address, though the FAQ clarifies that it's not for general inquiries and has a response time of approximately 11 hours due to signal lag. November 13th. The scientific community goes into overdrive. Every quantum physics lab on Earth is suddenly hosting emergency conferences. The CERN team that made the September 14th breakthrough holds a press conference where they look like students called to the principal's office. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the lead researcher, stands at the podium looking haggard. "We achieved stable entanglement across 10,000 qubits," she explains. "It was a proof of concept. We were going to publish next month. We had no idea." Her voice cracks slightly. "We had no idea we were doing anything dangerous. The math all checked out. The safety protocols were..." A reporter interrupts. "Did you cause this? Did your experiment trigger the containment?" Tanaka looks at the camera with hollow eyes. "Apparently, we rang a bell, a very, very loud bell, and something heard it. The UN Security Council convenes an emergency session. For the first time in history, they actually agree on something. They need to follow the instructions. 50 years of containment in exchange for not accidentally erasing human history from existence seems like a reasonable trade. But here's what keeps you up on November 14th. Reading and rereading that document is too convenient, too helpful, too perfectly designed to make humanity compliant. You're back at your telescope, watching 3i/Atlas continue its patient broadcast. The 47 objects are still gliding into position, still maintaining perfect formation, still building their geometric cage around your solar system. And you can't shake the feeling that you're missing something. Something in the way the message was constructed. Something in what it doesn't say. Section 2, paragraph 9 mentioned Galactic Accord 7394. That's a specific number, which implies at least 7393 previous accords. That's a lot of legislation for an organisation that's supposedly just preventing accidents. And that list of 738 civilizations that didn't make it during containment, the document never explains what didn't make it actually means. Did they accidentally erase themselves? Or did something else happen during those 50-year monitoring periods? You open an encrypted channel to Chen. Have you thought about what happens after 50 years? If we behave, presumably they leave. She replies, "And if we don't behave?" Long pause. The document doesn't say. You both sit with that silence for a moment. Then Chen adds, "There's something else." The transmission included metadata, timestamps. The document was generated 0.0003 seconds before it was transmitted. So it was written specifically for us, in real time, which means something is on 3i/Atlas or controlling it remotely that can think in English, understand human culture, predict our reactions, and compose a 47,000-word document with translations and FAQ in less than a millisecond. You watch 3i/Atlas through your telescope, a dot of light moving with impossible precision. Behind it, 47 more dots, building their pattern. Chen, what if the message isn't a warning? What if it's a test? A test of what? Compliance. They want to see if we'll voluntarily stop advancing, if we'll cage ourselves. Another long pause. When Chen speaks again, her voice is different. Careful. "There's a meeting," she says. "Classified. Tomorrow, they're calling in everyone who received the transmission. Everyone who's been watching the objects. They want to coordinate response protocols. Who's they? Does it matter anymore? Governments, space agencies, scientific institutions, everyone scrambling to figure out what comes next. What comes next? You look up at the sky, at the stars that suddenly seem much more crowded than they did 2 months ago. What comes next is you find out whether humanity is being protected or imprisoned, whether those 47 objects forming a net around your solar system are safeguards or shackles, and most terrifyingly, what happens when that net is complete. November 16th, 2024. The meeting happens in a place that officially doesn't exist. You're driven blindfolded, which seems excessive but also somehow appropriate to a facility somewhere in the Colorado mountains. When they remove the blindfold, you're in a conference room that looks like it was designed by people who watched too many spy movies. Concrete walls, no windows, electronic equipment that probably costs more than your house. There are 47 people in the room. You count. Of course there are 47. Doctor. Chen is there, along with faces you recognise from video conferences and published papers. Doctor. Marcus Webb from ESA. Doctor. Yuki Tanaka from CERN, looking like she hasn't slept since her press conference. Doctor. James Patterson from Caltech. A dozen others whose names you know from their work. The rest are people who don't introduce themselves, wearing suits that scream government in 12 different languages. But it's the woman at the head of the table who makes you sit up straight. Dr. Rebecca Sharp. You know that name. Former director of DARPA. Former NASA administrator. Currently, according to public records, retired. Except she doesn't look retired. She looks like someone who's been waiting for this meeting her entire life. "Thank you for coming," Sharp begins. And her voice has the kind of authority that makes you understand why she ran organisations with billion-dollar budgets. "Before we start, everyone in this room has been vetted at the highest levels. Everything discussed here is classified above top secret. If you repeat anything you hear, you'll spend the rest of your life in a legal black hole. Are we clear?" Nods round the table. You nod too, because what else are you going to do, good? Sharp pulls up a holographic display because apparently this facility has holographic displays showing the 47 objects in their current positions. Let's talk about what we're really dealing with, and why the instruction manual is the nicest lie anyone's ever told us. The room goes silent. Sharp continues. The document transmitted on November 12th is sophisticated, professionally crafted, designed to create compliance through a combination of authority and fear. It worked. Within 72 hours, every major quantum research program on Earth voluntarily shut down. The UN passed a resolution. We all agreed to play nice and wait out our 50-year probation. She pauses, looks around the room. But 3 days ago, we received a second transmission. This one wasn't broadcast to amateur astronomers and observatories. This one came through channels that required significantly more specialized equipment to detect. Military installations, deep space monitoring arrays, equipment designed to detect things that don't want to be detected. A new image appears. It's a data stream, dense, complex, nothing like the clean, readable document from November 12th. This, Sharp says, is what 3i/Atlas is actually saying, not the PR version. The real transmission, and when our cryptography teams broke it down, we found something interesting. Doctor, Webb leans forward. What kind of interesting? The kind that makes you question whether we're being quarantined or catalogued. Sharp pulls up a decoded section. It's still mathematical, but the structure is different. Where the first message was elegant and explanatory, this is clinical, systematic. It looks like inventory. This is a survey. Doctor, Patterson says slowly. Recognition dawning. They're surveying us. Not just us, Sharp corrects. Everything. Every artificial satellite in orbit. Every power plant. Every telecommunications hub. Every military installation. Every city above 1 million population. Hell, they're cataloguing our ocean currents and agricultural output. This isn't monitoring, this is assessment. You find your voice. Assessment for what? Sharp's expression is grim. That's the question that's been keeping me up at night, because there's a second component to this transmission, a mathematical model. And when our quantum computing team, yes, we kept one running, off the books analysed it, they found it's a predictive algorithm. She pulls up another visualization. It's Earth, but not as you've seen it before. There are layers of data overlaid on the planet, heat signatures, population density, energy consumption patterns, all of it flowing into a complex calculation. This algorithm is projecting human development. Doctor, Tanaka says, studying the display. Population growth, technological advancement, resource consumption. It's building a timeline. It's building multiple timelines, in as Sharp corrects. Approximately 10,000 different scenarios, each one modelling a different potential future for humanity based on various decision trees. And here's the disturbing part. She highlights a section of code. 847 of those scenarios end in what's labelled terminal outcome within the next 50 years. The room erupts. Questions fly from every direction. Sharp holds up a hand. There's more. The scenarios that don't end in terminal outcomes, the ones where humanity survives, they all have one thing in common. In every single one, human technological development flatlines at approximately our current level for at least 40 years. You see where this is going? They're not protecting us from ourselves, they're keeping us from advancing. That's one interpretation, says a man in a suit you don't recognize. His accent is Russian, and something about the way he carries himself suggests military intelligence. The other interpretation is that advancement at our current trajectory leads to something they don't want us to become. Chen speaks up. The instruction manual mentioned 738 civilizations that didn't make it during containment. What if they didn't accidentally erase themselves? What if they were eliminated because they refused to stop advancing? The room goes quiet again. It's the kind of quiet that happens when people realise they might be in more danger than they thought. Sharp nods slowly. That's the working theory. Which brings us to why you're all here. Over the past week, we've been conducting our own analysis of the 47 objects. Not just tracking them, but really studying them. And we've found some things that don't match the safety inspector narrative. She pulls up detailed scans of one of the objects. This is node 23, currently positioned at 38.7 AU from the Sun. Our deep space radar got a clean return off it 6 days ago. What you're looking at isn't a monitoring station. The image resolves. The object is roughly cylindrical, about 400 meters long, but along its surface are structures, geometric patterns that look disturbingly purposeful. Those are weapons ports, says the Russian operative flatly. I've seen enough military hardware to recognise targeting arrays when I see them. Doctor? Webb shakes his head. You can't know that. It could be sensor equipment, communications gear. We're looking at alien technology we have no frame of reference. Then, explain this. Sharp pulls up another scan. This one shows energy signatures. Thermal blooms along specific sections of the object. These activation patterns match nothing in nature, but they match very closely with something we know very well, charging cycles for directed energy weapons. We've been developing similar systems for the past decade. The signature is unmistakable. You stare at the display. How many of the 47 have you scanned? 19 so far. All 19 show identical configurations. Weapons ports, or something that looks exactly like weapons ports, positioned to create overlapping fields of fire covering the entire inner solar system. Doctor? Tanaka stands up abruptly. This is insane. You're telling us that these objects which claim to be protecting us are actually armed, that the quarantine is enforced by weapons. I'm telling you, Sharp replies calmly. that the evidence suggests we're not in protective custody. We're in a prison, one with very real walls and very real guards. A woman you don't recognise, her ID badge says Dr. Lin, but no institution speaks up. Has anyone considered that both things could be true, that they're protecting us with weapons, that the threat isn't from them, but from something else? It's a good point. One that makes everyone pause. Sharp pulls up a new image. This one is different. It's a star map, but with annotations you've never seen before. Lines connecting stars, patterns, territories. Almost. This is speculative, Sharp admits. But our xenoanthropology team, yes. We have one now has been analysing the spatial distribution of the 47 objects. The geometry isn't random. It's not even optimal for monitoring, but it is optimal for something else, creating a continuous barrier. She highlights sections of the map. If you assume each of these objects can project a field energy, gravitational, we don't know with a radius of roughly 0.8 AU, and you map their final positions, they create a complete spherical shell around our solar system. No gaps, no weak points, nothing gets in, nothing gets out. A Faraday cage. You murmur, but for space. For space steers for signals, for anything that moves, Sharp confirms. And here's the really interesting part. We backtracked their approach vectors. All 47 objects came from different directions, but when you trace them back far enough, accounting for stellar motion and galactic rotation, they all originated from the same region of space, a sphere roughly 1000 light-years across. Centred on a star system we've designated Kepler 442, Doctor. Webb pulls up data on his tablet. Kepler 442, Sun-like star, known to have at least one planet in the habitable zone. SETI scanned it back in 2018. Nothing. Nothing we recognised, Sharp corrects. But here's what's interesting. In 2019, Kepler 442's luminosity dropped by 0.003% for exactly 14 hours. We wrote it off as stellar variance, but that drop was uniform across all wavelengths, which is unusual, and the duration 14 hours, that's not how stellar phenomena work. Flares are quick, sunspots cause slow, cyclical variations. This was like someone threw a switch. You see where she's going. You think someone built something around Kepler 442, something there briefly blocked its light. I think, Sharp says carefully, that Kepler 442 might be home to whoever sent these objects, and I think that 0.003% luminosity drop might have been them launching a very large fleet 1,000 years ago. The math hits you like cold water. Light from Kepler 442 takes 1000 years to reach Earth. If they launched these objects around the year 1024 AD, around the time humans were building medieval castles and fighting the Crusades, those objects would be arriving right about now. They planned this. Chen breathes. 1,000 years ago, they detected something about Earth. Maybe radio waves that wouldn't reach them for another 900 years. Maybe something else. And they launched a containment fleet. A fleet that would arrive, Sharp continues, right around the time we'd be developing quantum coherence technology, which means either they can predict technological development curves with 1,000-year accuracy, or they've done this before. You finish, many times, they know the timeline. They know when species like us reach the dangerous threshold. Sharp nods. 2,847 times. According to their document, that's a lot of practice. A lot of data. You could build very accurate models with that much data. The implications are staggering. You're not looking at first contact. You're looking at a standardized procedure. A protocol that's been refined over thousands of civilizations. Humanity isn't special. We're just the latest species to reach the attention of something that's been doing this for... How long, Doctor? Patterson asked the question everyone's thinking. If they've been containing civilizations for that long, and they come from the single system, how big is their civilization? How much of the galaxy do they control? Sharp's expression darkens. We've been analysing historical astronomical data, looking for more luminosity anomalies like the one at Kepler 442, the kind that might indicate massive construction projects or fleet launches. She pulls up a galactic map. It's covered in markers, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. These are anomalies we've found in the past 30 years of deep space observation. Stellar luminosity variations that don't fit natural patterns. They're spread across approximately 40,000 light-years of the galactic disk. The room is dead silent now. You're looking at what might be the borders of an empire, one that spans a significant fraction of the Milky Way galaxy. If each marker represents a containment operation like ours, Sharp continues quietly, then we're looking at a civilization that's been actively managing technological species across 40,000 light-years of space for at least thousands of years, possibly tens of thousands. You try to wrap your mind around it. An empire spanning thousands of star systems, millions of worlds, a civilization so advanced, so organised that it can enforce quarantine protocols across distances that light takes millennia to cross. And humanity just rang their doorbell. The question before us, Sharp says, pulling everyone back to the present, is what we do with this information. The public believes the nice story, the quarantine for our own good narrative. Most governments are going along with it because the alternative, admitting we're surrounded by potentially hostile forces we can't possibly resist, isn't exactly great for social stability. But we can't just do nothing, Doctor, Tanaka protests. If those objects are weapons, if this is a prison, we have to... Have to what? The Russian operative interrupts. Fight with what our most powerful weapon is, a nuclear bomb. These objects travelled 1,000 years through interstellar space and arrived on schedule within a 3-week window. The energy requirements alone put them centuries beyond our capability. And there are 47 of them. So, we surrender, Tanaka shoots back. We just accept that humanity's future is controlled by someone else. We gather information, Sharp says firmly. We smile. We comply. We act like grateful children who've been saved from themselves. And while we're doing that, we learn everything we can about these objects, how they work, what they're vulnerable to, what they're really here to do. She looks around the room. Everyone here has a role. Some of you will continue public research, playing the grateful scientists. Some of you will work on classified projects, finding ways to probe these objects without triggering a response. And some of you, she looks directly at you, will keep watching, keep listening. Because here's the thing about surveillance states, they're never perfect. There are always gaps, always moments when the guards look away. You nod slowly, understanding your assignment. You're the canary in the coal mine. The amateur astronomer who stumbled into this mess and now can't leave. Your job is to watch for the moments when the pattern breaks, when the containment isn't quite as perfect as it seems. There's one more thing, Sharp says. She pulls up a final image. It's a section of the decoded transmission you haven't seen before. A small subroutine buried deep in the code. This is a timer, she explains. We almost missed it, but our quantum team found it 3 days ago. It's counting down. To what? Chen asks. We don't know, but based on the rate of count and the starting value, it reaches 0 on February 18th, 2025, the same day the 47th and final object reaches its designated position. You stare at the countdown, 94 days. When the net is complete, as you say quietly, something happens. Something happens, Sharp agrees. And we have 3 months to figure out what. The meeting breaks up shortly after. You're blindfolded again, driven back to a location near your home. But before they let you out, Chen pulls you aside. "You saw the star map," she whispers. "All those markers. Thousands of containment operations." "I saw." "Did you notice the pattern, how they're distributed?" "You hadn't. Actually, you were too overwhelmed by the sheer number." Chen pulls out her phone. Shows you a screenshot she took before they confiscated devices. "Look at the density. The markers get more concentrated the closer you get to the galactic core. And in the outer spiral arms where we are, they're sparse. Spread out. So either there are fewer technological civilizations out here, or," she pauses, choosing her words carefully, "or the ones out here learn to hide better. Learn to avoid detection." She puts her phone away. "The 47 objects haven't reached final position yet. The net isn't closed. If someone wanted to send a signal out to warn others or call for help, now would be the time." "That's insane." You say, "We don't know who else is out there. We could attract something worse." "Could we?" Chen asks. "Look at that star map. Look at how many civilizations have been contained. Maybe we're not the only ones who want out. Maybe somewhere out there, someone's been waiting for a signal, a sign that they're not alone in wanting to resist." She walks away before you can respond, leaving you standing in the cold November night, staring up at stars that suddenly seem both more crowded and more lonely than ever before. 94 days until the net closes. 94 days to decide if humanity accepts its cage or takes the most dangerous gamble in history. What would you do? November 23rd, 2024, Thanksgiving week. Families gathering around tables, grateful for blessings, unaware that their planet is being methodically surrounded by objects that might be protectors or prison guards, depending on who you ask. You're not at a family gathering. You're in your backyard at 3:47 a.m., wearing 3 layers because November in Arizona gets colder than people think, watching Node 23 through your telescope, watching, specifically, for the moment when the pattern breaks. Because Chen was right about one thing: perfect systems don't exist. And over the past week, you've started noticing the imperfections. It begins with something small, a timing discrepancy in the 3i/Atlas beacon. Remember that metronomic broadcast every 11 minutes and 43 seconds, precise as an atomic clock, on November 19th, one transmission arrived 0.047 seconds late. 47 thousandths of a second? Nothing. Really. Probably just signal interference. Atmospheric distortion. Equipment error on your end. Except it happens again on November 21st. Different delay this time, 0.083 seconds. And again on November 22nd, 0.031 seconds late. You log it. Send it to Chen through the encrypted channel. She responds within an hour. Others seen it too. Irregularities across multiple nodes, not random, pattern emerging. Pattern? That word again. You pull up your logs, map out all the timing discrepancies across the network of nodes. And there it is, subtle, but unmistakable. The delays aren't random interference. They're clustered. Nodes in specific geometric positions relative to each other experience delays at the same time. It's like watching dominoes fall. Node 12 has a delay. Then 0.3 seconds later, node 19 has 1, then node 31, then node 7, each delay triggering the next in a cascade across the growing network. You map it out in 3 dimensions and suddenly you're looking at something that makes your coffee go cold. The delays propagate along the shortest path between nodes. Not through space, through the structure itself, like the nodes are connected by something invisible, something that occasionally hiccups. Dr. Patterson publishes through classified channels a paper with a title that's almost funny. Observations of coherent field oscillations in artificial satellite networks. What he actually means. Holy shit, they're building something that's starting to turn on, and we can detect the power fluctuations. The 47 objects aren't just positioning themselves. They're linking, creating connections, building towards some kind of operational state that they haven't reached yet. And they're not quite ready. November 25th. You get a call at 2 a.m. from a number you don't recognise. The voice on the other end is young, nervous, speaking English with a French accent. Is this the amateur astronomer, the one who discovered 3/Atlas? Who's asking? My name is Dr. Jules Renard. I worked at CERN. I was on Dr. Tanaka's team. The quantum coherence experiment. He pauses. I need to tell you something, but not on this line. Can you access the secure network? You can. The scary government people gave you credentials before they blindfolded you and sent you home. You log in. Renard is waiting in an encrypted chat room. What he tells you makes you wish you'd stayed asleep. The September 14th experiment, he types. The one that supposedly triggered the containment response. We've been going over the data. Something is wrong. Wrong how? The quantum signature we produced, the bell we rang, it should have propagated at the speed of light. Maximum. That's how quantum information transfer works in our current understanding. So if the containment response was triggered by our experiment, and the nearest monitoring station is at least several light years away, they couldn't have responded for years. You see the problem immediately, but they responded in 6 weeks. They responded before we even did the experiment, Renard corrects. We've been analysing the orbital data for all 47 nodes. Based on their deceleration profiles and approach vectors, they all began their final approach manoeuvres in early August, 6 weeks before our experiment. The implications are staggering. They knew. Somehow they knew we were going to do it before we did it. Or, Renard types slowly, the experiment had nothing to do with it. What if the containment was already planned? What if they were always watching for something else? And the quantum coherence story is just the explanation they gave us, because it's one we'd accept. You think about the instruction manual, the careful, patient explanation about quantum coherence and existential risks, the warning about pulling threads and unravelling reality. It all made sense. It was logical. It was exactly the kind of explanation scientists would find credible, maybe too credible. What were they really responding to, you type? That's what keeps me awake. I've been going through astronomical data, looking for anything unusual that happened in the weeks before they began their final approach. And I found something. He shares a file. It's a dataset from the Event Horizon Telescope, the same instrument that photographed the black hole at the centre of M87. August 3rd, 2024 inches, Renard explains. The EHT was doing routine observations of Sagittarius A star, the supermassive black hole at the centre of our galaxy. They detected an anomaly, a burst of Hawking radiation that was structured. Not random quantum fluctuations, structured like a signal. You open the data file, even to your untrained eye. The pattern is obvious. Pulses, regular intervals, information. What does it say? We don't know. The signal lasted 17 seconds, then stopped. The team classified it as an instrumental error because it didn't match any known astrophysical process. But here's the thing. Renard's next message comes slowly, like he's typing with shaking hands. That burst was detected on August 3rd. The 47 nodes began their final approach manoeuvres on August 5th. 48 hours later. 48 hours. Barely enough time for a light-speed signal to travel from Sagittarius A star to Kepler 442 and back. You're saying something came out of our galactic core. You type, something sent a signal, and 2 days later the containment fleet activated. I'm saying, Renard replies, that maybe we're not the ones being contained. Maybe we're the bait. The chat goes silent for a long moment while you process that. Then Renard adds, there's more. The signal from Sagittarius A star, the EHT team did a spectral analysis. The frequency distribution matches within 97.3% confidence the transmission pattern of 3/Atlas. They're using the same communication protocol. You lean back from your screen. Outside, the sky is starting to lighten. Somewhere up there, 47 objects are gliding into position, building their net, preparing for what not to keep humanity from developing dangerous technology. That's just the story. The explanation that keeps everyone calm and compliant while the real plan unfolds. But what is the real plan? You think about the star map from Sharp's briefing, thousands of containment operations across 40,000 light years. All those civilizations, all those worlds, wrapped in their own nets and told it's for their own safety. What if they're all bait too? What if this isn't an empire that manages technological species? What if it's an empire that farms them? Your phone rings. It's Chen, and she sounds breathless. Turn on your radio telescope, but point it at the galactic centre. Do it now. You scramble to reposition your equipment. What am I looking for? Another burst, stronger than the August one. Patterson detected it 6 minutes ago. Multiple observatories confirming something is broadcasting from Sagittarius A star, and this time it's not stopping. You get the dish aligned. The signal comes through immediately, not in the background, not subtle. This is loud. This is intentional. It's counting. You whisper into the phone. It's counting down. Chen confirms. Same rate as the timer we found in the 3I/Atlas code. But this one started 2 months earlier. This isn't them counting down to us. This is whatever's at the galactic core, counting down to something. The broadcast is mathematical. Simple integer sequences decreasing 147, 146, 145. Each number transmitted in multiple formats, multiple languages of mathematics. Whoever's sending this wants to be absolutely certain everyone understands. Something is coming, and it's letting everyone know exactly when it will arrive. How long, you ask? The count is currently at 84 inches, Chen says. Based on the rate of decrease, it reaches 0 on February 18th, 2025. The same day the containment net completes, the same day all 47 nodes reach final position. This isn't coincidence. This is coordination. Over the next 12 hours, the scientific world explodes in classified briefings and emergency conferences. The Galactic Core broadcast is too loud to hide. Amateur astronomers worldwide are detecting it. But its meaning, its implications, those are being carefully managed. The public story. Natural astrophysical phenomenon. Periodic pulsar activity. Nothing to be concerned about. The classified reality. Something at the centre of our galaxy is announcing its arrival, and the containment fleet is positioning itself to either welcome it or stop it, and we have no idea which. Dr. Sharp convenes another meeting. This time it's virtual, too dangerous to gather everyone in one place again. Too much attention already. We have 3 data points, she begins, her face pixelated on your encrypted screen. August 3rd, first signal from Galactic Core. August 5th, containment fleet activates final approach. November 25th, second signal, much stronger, counting down, all pointing to February 18th. What are we looking at, Doctor? Webb speaks up from his location in Europe. Could be an invasion, something hostile approaching from the Galactic Core, and the containment fleet is here to protect us. That would make them the good guys after all. Or, the Russian operative counters, something hostile to them is approaching, and they're using our solar system as a defensive position. That would make us the battlefield. Doctor. Tanaka offers another option. What if it's not hostile at all? What if this is a regular occurrence? A traveller, a trader, something that makes routine passages through this region of space. And the containment protocols are about making sure we don't interfere. Each theory makes sense. Each theory is terrifying in its own way. You find yourself thinking about those 847 containments, all those civilizations, wrapped in their nets at just the right moment. What if the timing isn't about their technology at all? What if it's about the schedule of whatever travels through the galaxy? And the containment fleet's real job is to make sure nobody sees it pass by. There's a fourth option, you say, and everyone's attention focuses on your screen. What if the containment fleet and whatever's coming from the galactic core are working together? What if this is a harvest? Silence. The kind that means everyone thought of it, but nobody wanted to say it. Sharp's expression hardens. Explain. Look at the pattern. They contain civilizations at a specific technological level. Always the same level, advanced enough to be useful, not advanced enough to resist. They keep them contained for 50 years, keeping them at that exact developmental stage, and they time it so that every containment reaches its 50-year mark right when something makes a scheduled pass through the region. You pull up the star map, highlighting the density patterns Chen pointed out. And look at the galactic geography. The containments are denser toward the core, like breadcrumbs, like a trail leading something outward through the galaxy, with fresh supplies stationed every few thousand light years. Supplies. Dr. Patterson echoes quietly. You mean us. You mean civilizations. I mean, you say carefully, that if you were travelling across galactic distances and you needed resources, energy, information, biological material, whatever the most efficient strategy wouldn't be to carry everything with you. It would be to cultivate way stations, farms, harvesting operations timed to your route. Doctor. Tanaka looks sick. The 738 civilizations that didn't make it during containment, what if they weren't eliminated for failing to comply? What if they were consumed? What if that's the point? The virtual meeting dissolves into chaos. People shouting over each other, demanding evidence, refuting the theory, or worse, accepting it. Sharp lets it run for 2 minutes before cutting everyone off. This is speculation, she says firmly. Dark speculation. But it's one scenario we have to consider, which means we need to make decisions. Do we continue to comply? Do we attempt resistance? Do we try to contact whatever's coming, and we need to make these decisions in the next 84 days? She's right. The clock is ticking. Literally ticking. Broadcast from the galactic core for anyone with a radio telescope to hear. 83 days now. I vote we send a signal, says a voice you haven't heard before. It's Dr. Lin, the xenoanthropology specialist. Not to the containment fleet. To whatever's coming. We tell them we're here. We ask for help. That's insane, Webb sputters. We don't know what's coming. We could be inviting something worse than the containment. Or, Lin counters, we could be letting the containment fleet know they're not operating in secret anymore. That we see them, that we won't go quietly into whatever's planned for February 18th. The debate rages. But you're not listening anymore. You're thinking about Chen's comment from a week ago, about civilizations in the outer spiral arms learning to hide, about the sparse distribution of containments out here, far from the galactic core. What if some civilizations figured it out? What if some learned to see the pattern, learned to recognize the signs, and managed to evade containment? What if there's a whole network of hidden technological species out there? Staying dark, staying quiet, surviving by avoiding detection. And what if they've been watching us? Watching to see if we figure it out too? watching to see if we're smart enough, brave enough, to reject the comfortable lie and face the terrifying truth. You pull up your equipment logs, the timing anomalies in the node network, those cascading delays that propagate through the structure like packets of information, like a network booting up. But networks don't just receive, they also transmit. What if those delays aren't errors? What if they're the containment net scanning, sending out signals, broadcasting our location, our development level, our exact coordinates to whatever's approaching from the galactic core? What if we're not bait passively waiting? What if we're a beacon, actively calling something home? You interrupt the arguing on the video call. The node network, it's already operational, not for containment, for advertisement. They're broadcasting us. Everyone stops. Show us, Sharp demands. You share your screen, show the timing patterns, show how they pulse outward from the node network toward the galactic core, in perfect sync with the countdown signal. It's a dialogue. Doctor. Renard breathes. The core says 83 days. The nodes respond, coordinates confirmed, 83 days. They're confirming the reservation. We're the reservation, Chen says flatly. The call goes silent. Everyone's staring at the evidence, at the countdown, at the net closing around humanity while we politely complied because we believed the nice story about safety and quantum coherence and 50 years of supervised development. 82 days now. 82 days until whatever's travelling through the galaxy arrives at its scheduled stop. 82 days until humanity discovers what the containment has really been protecting us from or preparing us for. And suddenly, the question isn't whether to resist. The question is whether resistance is even possible, or if the trap was sprung the moment we were polite enough to believe we were being saved instead of served. What would you do with 82 days? November 23rd, 2024. Thanksgiving week. Families gathering around tables, grateful for blessings, unaware that their planet is being methodically surrounded by objects that might be protectors or prison guards, depending on who you ask. You're not at a family gathering. You're in your backyard at 3:47 a.m., wearing 3 layers because November in Arizona gets colder than people think, watching Node 23 through your telescope, watching, specifically, for the moment when the pattern breaks, because Chen was right about one thing: perfect systems don't exist. And over the past week, you've started noticing the imperfections. It begins with something small, a timing discrepancy in the 3i/Atlas beacon. Remember that metronomic broadcast every 11 minutes and 43 seconds, precise as an atomic clock on November 19th, one transmission arrived 0.047 seconds late. 47 thousandths of a second. Nothing. Really. Probably just signal interference. Atmospheric distortion. Equipment error on your end. Except it happens again on November 21st. Different delay, this time 0.083 seconds. And again on November 22nd, 0.031 seconds late. You log it, send it to Chen through the encrypted channel. She responds within an hour. Others seeing it too, irregularities across multiple nodes, not random, pattern emerging. Pattern, that word again. You pull up your logs, map out all the timing discrepancies across the network of nodes. And there it is, subtle, but unmistakable. The delays aren't random interference. They're clustered. Nodes in specific geometric positions relative to each other experience delays at the same time. It's like watching dominoes fall. Node 12 has a delay, then 0.3 seconds later. Node 19 has 1, then node 31, then node 7, each delay triggering the next in a cascade across the growing network. You map it out in 3 dimensions, and suddenly you're looking at something that makes your coffee go cold. The delays propagate along the shortest path between nodes. Not through space, through the structure itself, like the nodes are connected by something invisible, something that occasionally hiccups. Doctor. Patterson publishes through classified channels a paper with a title that's almost funny: Observations of Coherent Field Oscillations in Artificial Satellite Networks. What he actually means, holy shit, they're building something that's starting to turn on, and we can detect the power fluctuations. The 47 objects aren't just positioning themselves, they're linking, creating connections, building towards some kind of operational state that they haven't reached yet. And they're not quite ready. November 25th. You get a call at 2 a.m. from a number you don't recognise. The voice on the other end is young, nervous, speaking English with a French accent. Is this the amateur astronomer, the one who discovered 3I/Atlas, who's asking, "My name is Dr. Jules Renard. I worked at CERN. I was on Dr. Tanaka's team. The quantum coherence experiment." He pauses. "I need to tell you something, but not on this line. Can you access the secure network?" "You can." "The scary government people gave you credentials before they blindfolded you and sent you home. You log in. Renard is waiting in an encrypted chat room. What he tells you makes you wish you'd stayed asleep. The September 14th experiment," he types. "The one that supposedly triggered the containment response. We've been going over the data. Something is wrong. Wrong how? The quantum signature we produced, the bell we rang, it should have propagated at the speed of light. Maximum. That's how quantum information transfer works in our current understanding. So if the containment response was triggered by our experiment, and the nearest monitoring station is at least several light years away, they couldn't have responded for years. You see the problem immediately, but they responded in 6 weeks. They responded before we even did the experiment," Renard corrects. "We've been analysing the orbital data for all 47 nodes. Based on their deceleration profiles and approach vectors, they all began their final approach manoeuvres in early August, 6 weeks before our experiment. The implications are staggering. They knew. Somehow they knew we were going to do it before we did it. Or," Renard types slowly, "the experiment had nothing to do with it. What if the containment was already planned? What if they were always watching for something else? And the quantum coherence story is just the explanation they gave us because it's one we'd accept." You think about the instruction manual, the careful, patient explanation about quantum coherence and existential risks, the warning about pulling threads and unravelling reality. It all made sense. It was logical. It was exactly the kind of explanation scientists would find credible. Maybe too credible. What are they really responding to, you type? That's what keeps me awake. I've been going through astronomical data, looking for anything unusual that happened in the weeks before they began their final approach. And I found something. Lazio, he shares a file. It's a dataset from the Event Horizon Telescope, the same instrument that photographed the black hole at the centre of the M87. August 3rd, 2024 inches, Renard explains. The EHT was doing routine observations of Sagittarius A star, the supermassive black hole at the centre of our galaxy. They detected an anomaly, a burst of Hawking radiation that was structured, not random quantum fluctuations, structured like a signal. You open the data file, even to your untrained eye, the pattern is obvious. Pulses, regular intervals, information. What does it say? We don't know. The signal lasted 17 seconds, then stopped. The team classified it as an instrumental error because it didn't match any known astrophysical process. But here's the thing. Renard's next message comes slowly, like he's typing with shaking hands. That burst was detected on August 3rd. The 47 nodes began their final approach manoeuvres on August 5th. 48 hours later. 48 hours. Barely enough time for a light-speed signal to travel from Sagittarius A star to Kepler 442 and back. You're saying something came out of our galactic core. You type, something sent a signal, and 2 days later, the containment fleet activated. I'm saying, Renard replies, that maybe we're not the ones being contained. Maybe we're the bait. The chat goes silent for a long moment while you process that. Then Renard adds, there's more. The signal from Sagittarius A star, the EHT team did a spectral analysis. The frequency distribution matches within 97.3% confidence the transmission pattern of 3I/Atlas. They're using the same communication protocol. You lean back from your screen. Outside, the sky is starting to lighten. Somewhere up there, 47 objects are gliding into position, building their net, preparing for what not to keep humanity from developing dangerous technology. That's just the story, the explanation that keeps everyone calm and compliant while the real plan unfolds. But what is the real plan? You think about the star map from Sharp's briefing. Thousands of containment operations across 40,000 light years. All those civilizations, all those worlds, wrapped in their own nets and told it's for their own safety. What if they're all bait too? What if this isn't an empire that manages technological species? What if it's an empire that farms them? Your phone rings. It's Chen, and she sounds breathless. Turn on your radio telescope, point it at the galactic center. Do it now! You scramble to reposition your equipment. What am I looking for? Another burst, stronger than the August one. Patterson detected it 6 minutes ago. Multiple observatories confirming something is broadcasting from Sagittarius A star, and this time it's not stopping. You get the dish aligned. The signal comes through immediately, not in the background, not subtle. This is loud. This is intentional. It's counting. You whisper into the phone. It's counting down. Chen confirms. Same rate as the timer we found in the 3I/Atlas code. But this one started 2 months earlier. This isn't them counting down to us. This is whatever's at the galactic core, counting down to something. The broadcast is mathematical. Simple integer sequences decreasing. 147, 146, 145. Each number transmitted in multiple formats, multiple languages of mathematics. Whoever's sending this wants to be absolutely certain everyone understands. Something is coming, and it's letting everyone know exactly when it will arrive. How long, you ask? The count is currently at 84 inches, Chen says. Based on the rate of decrease, it reaches 0 on February 18th, 2025. The same day the containment net completes. The same day all 47 nodes reach final position. This isn't coincidence. This is coordination. Over the next 12 hours, the scientific world explodes in classified briefings and emergency conferences. The Galactic Core broadcast is too loud to hide amateur astronomers worldwide are detecting it. But its meaning, its implications, those are being carefully managed. The public story. Natural astrophysical phenomenon, periodic pulsar activity, nothing to be concerned about. The classified reality. Something at the centre of our galaxy is announcing its arrival, and the containment fleet is positioning itself to either welcome it or stop it, and we have no idea which. Doctor, Sharp convenes another meeting. This time it's virtual, too dangerous to gather everyone in one place again. Too much attention already. We have 3 data points, she begins, her face pixelated on your encrypted screen. August 3rd, first signal from Galactic Core. August 5th, containment fleet activates final approach. November 25th. Second signal, much stronger, counting down, all pointing to February 18th. What are we looking at? Doctor, Webb speaks up from his location in Europe. Could be an invasion, something hostile approaching from the galactic core. And the containment fleet is here to protect us. That would make them the good guys after all. Or, the Russian operative counters, something hostile to them is approaching, and they're using our solar system as a defensive position. That would make us the battlefield. Doctor. Tanaka offers another option. What if it's not hostile at all? What if this is a regular occurrence? A traveller, a trader, something that makes routine passages through this region of space? And the containment protocols are about making sure we don't interfere. Each theory makes sense. Each theory is terrifying in its own way. You find yourself thinking about those 847 containments, all those civilizations, wrapped in their nets at just the right moment. What if the timing isn't about their technology at all? What if it's about the schedule of whatever travels through the galaxy, and the containment fleet's real job is to make sure nobody sees it pass by? There's a fourth option, you say, and everyone's attention focuses on your screen. What if the containment fleet and whatever's coming from the galactic core are working together? What if this is a harvest? Silence. The kind that means everyone thought of it, but nobody wanted to say it. Sharp's expression hardens. Explain. Look at the pattern. They contain civilizations at a specific technological level. Always the same level, advanced enough to be useful, not advanced enough to resist. They keep them contained for 50 years, keeping them at that exact developmental stage. And they time it so that every containment reaches its 50-year mark right when something makes a scheduled pass through the region. You pull up the star map, highlighting the density patterns Chen pointed out. And look at the galactic geography. The containments are denser toward the core, like breadcrumbs, like a trail leading something outward through the galaxy, with fresh supplies stationed every few thousand light years. Supplies. Dr. Patterson echoes quietly. You mean us. You mean civilizations. I mean, you say carefully, that if you were travelling across galactic distances, and you needed resources, energy, information, biological material, whatever the most efficient strategy wouldn't be to carry everything with you. It would be to cultivate way stations, farms, harvesting operations timed to your route. Doctor, Tanaka looks sick. The 738 civilizations that didn't make it during containment. What if they weren't eliminated for failing to comply? What if they were consumed? What if that's the point? The virtual meeting dissolves into chaos. People shouting over each other, demanding evidence, refuting the theory, or worse, accepting it. Sharp lets it run for 2 minutes before cutting everyone off. This is speculation, she says firmly. Dark speculation. But it's one scenario we have to consider, which means we need to make decisions. Do we continue to comply? Do we attempt resistance? Do we try to contact whatever's coming? And we need to make these decisions in the next 84 days. She's right. The clock is ticking. Literally ticking. Broadcast from the galactic core for anyone with a radio telescope to hear. 83 days now. I vote we send a signal, says a voice you haven't heard before. It's Dr. Lin, the xenoanthropology specialist. Not to the containment fleet, to whatever's coming. We tell them we're here. We ask for help. That's insane, Webb sputters. We don't know what's coming. We could be inviting something worse than the containment. Or, Lin counters, we could be letting the containment fleet know they're not operating in secret anymore. That we see them, that we won't go quietly into whatever's planned for February 18th. The debate rages, but you're not listening anymore. You're thinking about Chen's comment from a week ago, about civilizations in the outer spiral arms learning to hide, about the sparse distribution of containments out here, far from the galactic core. What if some civilizations figured it out? What if some learned to see the pattern, learned to recognize the signs? and managed to evade containment, what if there's a whole network of hidden technological species out there, staying dark, staying quiet, surviving by avoiding detection? And what if they've been watching us watching to see if we figure it out too? Watching to see if we're smart enough, brave enough, to reject the comfortable lie and face the terrifying truth. You pull up your equipment logs, the timing anomalies in the node network, those cascading delays that propagate through the structure like packets of information, like a network booting up. But networks don't just receive, they also transmit. What if those delays aren't errors? What if they're the containment net scanning, sending out signals, broadcasting our location, our development level, our exact coordinates to whatever's approaching from the galactic core? What if we're not bait passively waiting? What if we're a beacon, actively calling something home? You interrupt the arguing on the video call. The node network, it's already operational, not for containment, for advertisement. They're broadcasting us. Everyone stops. Show us, Sharp demands. You share your screen, show the timing patterns, show how they pulse outward from the node network, toward the galactic core, in perfect sync with the countdown signal. It's a dialogue. Doctor, Renard breathes. The core says 83 days. The nodes respond, coordinates confirmed, 83 days. They're confirming the reservation. We're the reservation, Chen says flatly. The call goes silent. Everyone's staring at the evidence, at the countdown, at the net closing around humanity while we politely complied because we believed the nice story about safety and quantum coherence and 50 years of supervised development. 82 days now. 82 days until whatever's travelling through the galaxy arrives at its scheduled stop. 82 days until humanity discovers what the containment has really been protecting us from or preparing us for. And suddenly, the question isn't whether to resist. The question is whether resistance is even possible, or if the trap was sprung the moment we were polite enough to believe we were being saved instead of served. What would you do with 82 days? December 1st, 2024. The world celebrates the start of the holiday season. Christmas lights go up, shopping malls fill with crowds, children write letters to Santa, and you're sitting in your backyard, staring at a countdown that has nothing to do with presents and everything to do with survival. 78 days. The galactic core keeps broadcasting. The nodes keep responding. And somewhere in classified bunkers and government facilities across the globe, people are making decisions that will determine whether humanity goes quietly into February 18th or makes the most desperate gamble in history. But here's what nobody expected: the net isn't perfect. And the imperfections are starting to tell a story. It begins with Node 8, December 3rd, 2:34 a.m. Your equipment picks up something unusual. Node 8 positioned at 41.2 AU, roughly in the direction of the constellation Aquarius misses a response cycle. The core broadcasts its countdown 76 days, and all the nodes echo back their confirmation. All except Node 8. You log it. Wait, maybe it's a glitch. Maybe Node 8 comes back online 17 minutes later, but when it does, something is different. The signal is off, not wrong, exactly, just slightly different in modulation, like someone speaking the same words but with a different accent. You send the data to Chen. She responds immediately. Others notice too, running spectral analysis, stand by. The analysis comes back 3 hours later, and it's uploaded to the classified network with a priority tag that makes your screen flash red. Node 8 has been compromised. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Compromised. Something has accessed it, modified it, changed its response pattern just enough that sophisticated analysis can detect the difference, but not so much that the containment network flags it as an error. Doctor, Sharp convenes an emergency session. This time there's no pretense of calm. Her face on your screen looks like someone who hasn't slept in days, because she probably hasn't. 17 hours ago, Node 8 was accessed by an unknown party. She begins without preamble. We've analysed the modification. It's elegant, professional. Whoever did this knows exactly how the containment network operates. They inserted a subroutine that piggybacks on Node 8's regular transmissions. Piggybacks to where, Doctor? Webb asks. That's the interesting part. Sharp pulls up a star chart. The modified signal is being redirected, reflected at a specific angle and frequency that doesn't match the core node communication protocol. It's been sent. She highlights a region of space. Here. A volume of space approximately 40 light-years from Earth, in the direction of the constellation Cetus. You study the coordinates. There's nothing there, no known stars in that exact region, just empty space. Empty space that's now receiving detailed telemetry about the containment operation, Sharp says. Position coordinates, network topology, response protocols, everything you'd need if you were planning to interfere with the containment. Doctor? Patterson leans forward. Who else is out here? Who else is watching? That, says a new voice on the call, is exactly the right question. The face that appears is unfamiliar. Older man, maybe 70, with the kind of eyes that have seen things they wish they hadn't. The nameplate reads Doctor. Heinrich Volker, ESA Deep Space Communications. Apologies for the intrusion, Volker continues in a heavy German accent. But I have information relevant to this discussion, information that has been classified for 37 years. Sharp's expression suggests she knows what's coming and doesn't like it. Doctor. Volker. This isn't the appropriate. In 1,987 inches, Volker interrupts. The ESA detected an anomalous signal, not from space towards space. A transmission originating from Earth's surface, directed at specific coordinates in deep space. We traced it to a facility in Kazakhstan, a Soviet installation that officially didn't exist. The Russian operative on the call, you've learned his name, is Dmitry Sokolov, goes very still. Volker continues. We monitored this facility for 6 years. It transmitted regularly. Always the same coordinates, always in the same frequency band. We couldn't decode the transmissions, the encryption was beyond anything we'd seen. Then, in 1993, the facility went dark. Literally. Satellite imagery showed it had been destroyed, not bombed, melted, as if something had subjected it to temperatures exceeding 3000 degrees Celsius. What does this have to do with Node 8 inches, Chen asks. The coordinates, Volker says quietly. The facility was transmitting to the exact same region of space. The same empty volume near Cetus. They were talking to someone. And in 1993, someone answered back. With fire. The implications hang in the digital air. Sokolov finally speaks, his voice carefully neutral. The facility was called Red Star Station. It was a first contact protocol center. We detected anomalies in deep space beginning in 1981, patterns that suggested intelligence. We attempted communication. As Doctor, Volker stated, we received a response, once. What kind of response, you ask? The kind that kills everyone within a 3-kilometer radius and leaves the ground fused to glass, Sokolov replies flatly. We took the hint. We stopped transmitting. Classified all records. Pretended it never happened. But someone else didn't stop. Doctor, Lynn says slowly. Someone else has been maintaining that communication. And now they've accessed Node 8. Sharp pulls up more data. We've been digging through historical records since Node 8 was compromised, cross-referencing astronomical anomalies with technological signatures, and we've found patterns, communication attempts, Not from governments, from private organisations, shadow groups that apparently decided Earth's official policy of don't attract attention was too cautious. She displays a list. It's longer than you expected. 17 separate organisations across 6 decades, all attempting to contact something in deep space. Most of them ended badly. Facilities destroyed. Researchers vanished. Projects abandoned after accidents that look increasingly deliberate when you know what to look for. Someone out there doesn't want us talking to the neighbours. Doctor, Patterson observes, the question is whether that someone is the containment fleet or the neighbours themselves. Or, you say, thinking it through, someone else entirely? A third party that benefits from keeping civilizations isolated. The call goes quiet, everyone considering the implications of a cosmos that's not just crowded, but politically complex. Not empty space with occasional visitors, but territory, boundaries, factions with competing interests in what happens to species like humanity. December 5th. Node 8 isn't the only one showing anomalies anymore. Nodes 15, 23 and 31 all begin displaying the same modified response pattern. Different modifications more sophisticated. Harder to detect, but the same purpose redirecting telemetry to that empty region near Cetus. It's spreading, Chen says when she visits your house that evening. It's the first time you've seen her in person since the Colorado briefing. She looks exhausted. Like a virus. Each compromised node is infecting its neighbours. Or, you counter, pouring a coffee that's probably too strong. Someone is systematically accessing them, one by one, taking control of the containment network from the inside. To what end? That's the question. You pull up your own analysis, the work you've been doing in the 18-hour days between brief attempts at sleep. Look at which nodes are being compromised. They're not random. They're being selected based on position. You show her the pattern. The compromised nodes form a specific geometric arrangement. An arc. A section of the containment sphere that faces. You rotate the model, highlighting the direction. They're all on the side facing the galactic core. Chen breathes. Someone is taking control of the nodes that would detect or respond to whatever's coming. Or, you say, someone is creating a gap, a hole in the net, a way for something to get through. Chen sets down her coffee, stares at the model. You're saying someone is helping whatever's approaching. Someone on our side of the containment. Or someone who's been waiting inside the net, waiting for the right moment. She pulls up her tablet, starts cross-referencing data with a speed that suggests she's had the same thought. The historical contact attempts, the organisations that tried to reach out, what if some of them succeeded? What if some of them made deals? It's a disturbing thought. Humans collaborating with whatever's coming, trading information, access, maybe even loyalty in exchange for what? Survival power. A seat at the table when February 18th arrives. We need to find them, Chen says. These groups, these collaborators, before they compromise enough nodes to actually create that gap. But even as she says it, you both know it's probably too late. If these groups have been operating for decades, if they've successfully hidden from governments and agencies that were actively hunting them, finding them in 73 days is unlikely. December 8th. The compromise spreads to 11 nodes, then 15, then 23. The pattern becomes undeniable. Someone is systematically taking control of nearly half the containment network. And the modifications are becoming more sophisticated, more aggressive. Node 23, remember Node 23. The one that first showed weapon signatures suddenly changes its orientation. A minor adjustment, just 0.7 degrees. But that adjustment means its weapons ports, if that's what they are no longer aimed at Earth. They're aimed at Node 12, another part of the containment network. They're turning the net against itself. Doctor, Webb reports in a hastily called briefing. Whoever's doing this isn't trying to disable the containment. They're trying to weaponize it. Sharp looks grimmer than ever. We've identified the likely source of the compromises, or at least where the commands are originating. She pulls up satellite imagery. It's a facility. Large. Remote. Somewhere in the Atacama Desert in Chile, one of the best places on Earth for astronomical observation. This is the Cerro Amazonas Observatory, Sharp explains. Officially, it's a privately funded research facility, deep space observation, SETI-adjacent work, clean credentials, published papers, nothing suspicious. Until, Sokolov prompts, until we analyse their transmission logs. They've been communicating with the nodes since November 19th, the day the timing anomalies started. They're using a frequency that perfectly matches the node-to-node communication protocol. They crack the containment network's encryption. Doctor, Tanaka says, disbelief in her voice. In 6 weeks, they broke security that a civilization thousands of years more advanced than us implemented. Or, Volker suggests darkly, they were given the encryption keys by someone who wanted the containment compromised. The obvious question hangs unasked: who would want that? Who benefits from turning the containment fleet's weapons on itself while something approaches from the galactic core? We're going in, Sharp announces. Covert team will secure the facility, detain the personnel, and shut down whatever they're doing. Operation launches in 6 hours. And if they resist, Sokolov asks, then we find out whose side they're really on. December 9th, 3:47 a.m. You're watching the operation unfold through classified channels. Thermal imagery from satellites, drone footage, radio intercepts, a combined team of American, Russian, and European special forces approaching Cerro Amazonas Observatory from 3 directions. The facility looks quiet, normal, just another astronomical research station in the middle of the Chilean desert. The teams breach simultaneously. Military precision, overwhelming force, and they find nothing. Empty. The observatory is completely empty. Computers still running. Equipment still operational. Coffee still warm in the break room. But no people. No researchers. No staff. It's like they evacuated 10 minutes ago. The team leader reports, everything is here except the people. Check the transmission logs. Sharp orders. Find out what they were sending. The tech team dives into the computers. What they find makes no sense. The facility wasn't sending commands to the nodes, the tech specialist reports. It was relaying, receiving transmissions from somewhere else and forwarding them to the containment network. From where? Sharp demands. From? The specialist pauses, double-checking. From the nodes themselves, specifically from Node 47. Node 47, the last one. The one that hasn't reached its final position yet. The one that won't complete the network until February 18th. They're already here, you whisper, alone in your backyard, watching the operation feed. Not just the objects, something else. Someone else. They've been here all along. The facility computers contain more. Decades of communications. Contact logs going back to 1987. Not after Red Star Station was destroyed. Before. They've been talking to someone since before the Soviet facility was eliminated. Volker says, scrolling through files that are being uploaded in real time. This organisation, whoever they are, they made contact before we did. And unlike the Soviets, they said the right things. They survived. The logs contain conversations, negotiations, agreements spanning decades. And they all lead to one conclusion: there is something approaching from the galactic core. Something that has been travelling for millennia. Something that doesn't just want to harvest humanity. It wants to liberate us. Or that's what it's been telling its human collaborators for 40 years. It's a competing faction. Doctor, Lin says. Pieces falling into place. The containment fleet represents one political entity. What's coming from the core represents another. And we're caught in the middle of a conflict that's been ongoing for longer than human civilization. The logs contain promises, technology sharing, partnership, a place in the greater galactic community, everything humanity has dreamed of since we first looked up at the stars. All we have to do is help them break the containment, help them create a gap in the net, help them get through. And after they get through, Chen asks the question everyone's thinking. The logs don't answer that. Or rather, they do. But only with more promises, more assurances that this is liberation, not conquest, freedom, not subjugation. The same promises the containment fleet probably made to 2846 other civilizations before us. December 10th, the compromised node's now number 31. The gap in the containment network facing the galactic core is nearly complete. And the countdown continues. 68 days. Doctor. Sharp makes a decision. We're going public. Not everything people would panic, but enough. We tell them the containment might not be protective. We tell them there are competing factions. We let humanity make an informed choice about what happens next. That's insane, Sokolov objects. The chaos alone. The chaos is coming anyway, Sharp interrupts. In 68 days, something arrives. Either we face it unified and informed, or we face it divided and blind. I choose informed. But before she can release the information, before humanity can be told the truth about the cosmic war playing out over their heads, something happens that changes everything. Node 47, the last node, still in transit, still approaching its final position, suddenly accelerates. Not the gentle deceleration pattern. Acceleration, hard acceleration, the kind that suggests active propulsion. The kind that should be impossible for an object that size unless it's not just a monitoring station. Doctor, Patterson says, watching the trajectory update. Unless it's a ship. Unless all of them are ships. And Node 47 just received orders to complete the mission early. The new calculations come in, based on current acceleration. Node 47 will reach its position not on February 18th, but on December 25th, Christmas Day, 16 days. The countdown from the galactic core doesn't change, still ticking towards February 18th, but the containment network is moving up its timeline, rushing to completion, desperate to close the net before whatever's approaching arrives, or desperate to close it before the humans compromising the network can open a bigger gap. You sit in your backyard watching Node 47 burn bright in the infrared spectrum as it pushes through space faster than anything that size should move. Behind it, the other 46 nodes begin adjusting too. Subtle course corrections, velocity changes, all of them converging on their final positions ahead of schedule. The net is closing, and you have 16 days to decide which side of it you want to be on. Or if there's a third option, nobody's seeing it. What would you do with 16 days? December 11th, 2024. The world still doesn't know, but the silence is fracturing. You can feel it in the way news anchors pause mid-sentence when reporting on unusual astronomical activity. In the way governments issue vague statements about increased space weather monitoring. In the way your neighbour, who works at NASA, hasn't been home in 3 days. The truth is leaking. Not flooding out, not yet, but seeping through the cracks in the official narrative like water through a failing dam. 15 days until the net closes. But here's what breaks your brain as you sit in your backyard at 4 a.m. Coffee gone cold in your hands, the silence isn't coming from the governments anymore. It's coming from somewhere else entirely. December 12th. Chen arrives at your house at dawn with news that makes no sense. The Cerro Amazones facility, she says, spreading documents across your kitchen table. We've been analysing the communication logs. The people who ran it, the collaborators who've been compromising the nodes, they weren't acting alone. Obviously, you say they were working with whatever's coming from... No. She cuts you off. I mean, they weren't acting alone on Earth. The facility was funded by 17 different organisations. Shell companies traced back to governments, corporations, even academic institutions, Chinese intelligence, Russian oligarchs, American tech billionaires, European research councils. They were all funding the same project. You stare at the financial records. That's impossible. These groups don't cooperate. Half of them are actively hostile to each other. Exactly. Chen pulls up another file, which means someone convinced all of them simultaneously, secretly, that collaborating with the approaching entity was in their best interest. Someone coordinated a global conspiracy across hostile geopolitical boundaries. Someone who could promise each group exactly what they wanted to hear. Someone who understands human psychology perfectly. You say slowly. Someone who's been studying us for a very long time. The implications are staggering. This isn't first contact. This is a relationship that's been ongoing for decades, maybe longer. Carefully cultivated. Promises made. Alliances formed. All building towards December 25th. There's more, Chen says. She looks like she wishes there wasn't. We found communication records from the facility. Not the node compromises personal communications. Emails, video calls, between the research staff and others. She plays a video file. It's grainy, compressed multiple times to hide in encrypted channels. The timestamp says March 15th, 2019. A woman sits at a desk in what looks like the Cerro Amazones facility. Mid-40s. Scientist based on the books behind her, speaking English with a Chilean accent. We've completed Phase 3. She reports to someone off screen. The encryption protocols work perfectly. We can now communicate with the network nodes without detection. We'll be ready to create the gap when you arrive. A voice responds, it's wrong. Not quite human. Like someone speaking through a translator that's almost but not quite accurate. Excellent work, Dr. Fuentes. Your species continues to exceed expectations. When liberation occurs, you'll be honoured appropriately. The woman smiles. It's the smile of someone who believes she's on the winning side. How long until arrival? The timeline has been adjusted. December 2024. Earlier than initially calculated. Is this problematic? No, Doctor, Fuentes says quickly. We can be ready. We will be ready. The video cuts off. Chen closes the file. Doctor, Maria Fuentes, PhD in astrophysics from Cambridge, published 17 papers on extragalactic communication. Went to work at Cerro Amazones in 2015. She's been coordinating the node compromises. Where is she now? That's the problem. We don't know. None of them. The entire staff of Cerro Amazones, 23 people, vanished between December 8th and 9th. No travel records, no financial activity, no digital footprint. They're just gone. You think about that. About how you disappear 23 people without leaving traces in the modern surveillance state. You don't think they left voluntarily? I think, Chen says carefully, that when you make a deal with something non-human, you should read the fine print about what happens when the deal is complete. December 13th. The net continues to close. Node 47 is burning through space at velocities that make your equipment readings look like errors. The other nodes are adjusting, compensating, ensuring their geometric perfection remains intact even with the accelerated timeline. 13 days, but something else is happening. Something the containment fleet didn't anticipate. The compromised nodes, the 31 that have been accessed and modified, aren't just relaying information anymore. They're behaving differently. Their weapon systems, if that's what they are, remain pointed at each other rather than at potential threats from the galactic core. Doctor Patterson runs the simulations. If these 31 nodes activated their directed energy systems in their current configurations, they wouldn't create a defensive perimeter. They'd create a crossfire pattern that would tear holes in the containment network itself. A gap, you say? Multiple gaps, Patterson corrects. 31 openings in the net, all facing the approaching entity, like rolling out a welcome mat. Doctor, Sharp's emergency briefing that night has the energy of people watching a car crash in slow motion. We have confirmation, she begins, that the approaching entity is aware of the containment and has been actively working to undermine it for at least 40 years, possibly longer. The human collaborators weren't just useful idiots, they were recruited, trained, and positioned specifically for this moment. She pulls up a timeline. 1987. First confirmed contact with human agents. 1993 Soviet facility destroyed not by the approaching entity, but by the containment fleet, eliminating a competing effort. 2015 Cerro Amazones established as a primary coordination centre. 2024 September 14th. Our quantum coherence experiment, which we now believe was deliberately publicised, provided perfect cover for the containment fleet's arrival. Nobody questioned why they showed up because we gave them a reason to show up. Wait. Doctor, Tanaka interrupts. Are you saying our experiment was manipulated, that we were used? I'm saying, Sharp replies evenly. That doctor, Fuentes, published a paper in 2023 about the theoretical possibility of detecting quantum coherence experiments from light years away. A paper that got significant attention in the physics community. A paper that may have inspired your research direction. Tanaka's face goes pale. We thought it was our breakthrough. Our innovation. It was your innovation, Sharp says, not unkindly. But innovation can be nudged, suggested, guided by someone who knows the likely path of research and drops the right hints at the right time. The conspiracy is elegant, terrifying, but elegant. The approaching entity needed cover for the containment fleet's arrival, needed humanity to believe there was a reason for the net beyond preparation for harvest. So they gave us that reason. They made us give them that reason. What's the end game? Sokolov asks. The entity arrives. The net has been compromised. Gaps exist. Then what? Then we find out, Sharp says, whether liberation is real or if it's just a prettier word for invasion. December 15th. Something changes. The countdown from the galactic core stutters. For 47 days, it's been consistent. Mathematical precision. Each broadcast exactly on schedule. But at 3:17 a.m. on December 15th, the signal hiccups, repeats. The count goes from 11 days to 10 days to 11 days again, then stabilizes at 10. It's recalculating. Doctor, Volker reports, adjusting to the containment fleet's accelerated timeline. Whatever's approaching knows the net is closing early and it's compensating. The new timeline emerges from the recalibrated broadcast. Not February 18th, not December 25th, December 22nd, 1 week. It's a race. Chen says when you meet her at an undisclosed location because your house is no longer considered secure enough for these conversations. The containment fleet is trying to close the net before the entity arrives. The entity is accelerating to arrive before the net closes, and the compromised nodes are trying to create gaps before either happens. Who wins? That's what we're about to find out. But here's where it gets weird. Here's where the neat narrative of two competing factions breaks down and something else emerges. December 16th. Node 8, the first compromised node, suddenly stops responding. Not to the containment network, to everything. It goes dark, silent, dead in space. 12 hours later, node 15 does the same. Then node 23, one by one, the compromised nodes are going offline. They're being shut down, Patterson reports. Something is deactivating them remotely. The containment fleet, you ask? That's what we thought. but the deactivation sequence doesn't match their protocols. It's something else. Something third. Chen's voice is quiet when she speaks. What if there aren't two factions? What if there are three? The room goes silent as everyone processes this. The containment fleet, Chen continues, ticking off on her fingers, the approaching entity from the galactic core, and something else, something that doesn't want either of them to succeed, something that's been watching this whole time and just now decided to act. The empty region near Cetus, you say, remembering. The coordinates the compromised nodes were transmitting to, that's not where the approaching entity is, that's somewhere else entirely. Volker pulls up the star charts. 40 light-years from Earth. If there's something there, and it detected our transmissions in 1987, and it responded even with violence, then it's been aware of us for at least 37 years. And it's been watching the containment operation. Doctor, Lin adds. Watching the approaching entity, watching the whole game play out. And now, with 1 week left, it's making a move. The compromised nodes continue to deactivate. By December 17th, all 31 are offline. The carefully constructed gaps in the containment network close as the remaining functional nodes adjust their positions to compensate. The net will be complete after all, unless something breaks it from the outside. December 18th, 6 days until arrival. And that's when the third faction announces itself, not with a transmission, not with a signal. With action, a flash of light appears on telescopes worldwide, bright, brief, located at precisely the coordinates near Cetus that have been receiving transmissions for decades. That was a weapons discharge from the structure, Sokolov says, analysing the spectrum. Directed energy, massive scale, equivalent to several megatons. Aimed where? Sharp demands. The trajectory analysis comes back. The weapon wasn't aimed at Earth, wasn't aimed at the containment nodes. It was aimed toward the galactic core, toward whatever's approaching. It's a warning shot. You breathe. They're telling the approaching entity to stop, to turn back. For 16 hours, nothing happens. The countdown continues. The approaching entity maintains course. The containment fleet continues its preparations. Then, at 2:33 a.m. on December 19th, the approaching entity responds. Not with words, with demonstration. A star disappears, not dims, not changes colour, disappears. 1 second it's there on astronomical surveys, a yellow dwarf star 847 light-years from Earth. Catalogue number HD 142022. The next second, it's gone. Completely, as if it never existed. Except we have centuries of observations proving it did exist. We have spectrographic data, distance measurements, orbital mechanics of its planetary system, all of it now showing empty space. How, Doctor? Tanaka whispers, staring at the comparative images. How do you delete a star? You don't, Volker says slowly. Not through any physics we understand. But if you could manipulate causality at a quantum level, if you could reach back along a star's world line and stop, Sharp interrupts. You're saying this entity can erase things from history, from reality itself. I'm saying, Volker replies, that the warning in the instruction manual about quantum coherence causing reality collapse wasn't theoretical. They've demonstrated the capability. And the message is clear. We can do this to you. The demonstration has its intended effect. The faction near Cetus goes silent. No more weapons discharges. No more interference with the compromised nodes. They've been shown what they're up against. December 20th. 4 days. The net is nearly complete. The approaching entity is close enough now that conventional telescopes can detect it. Not a fleet, not multiple ships. One object, massive, roughly spherical. 2,000 kilometers in diameter, larger than the asteroid Ceres, smaller than Earth's moon. Moving through space at a significant fraction of light speed. decelerating as it approaches, leaving a wake of distorted space-time that makes measurements difficult. It's not a ship, Dr. Patterson says, running analysis after analysis. Or if it is, it's a ship the size of a moon. The energy requirements to move something that massive are... He trails off. Because the numbers don't make sense. Can't make sense. What's inside it, Chen asks. Nobody answers because nobody knows. The object is opaque to all forms of scanning. Radar bounces off. Thermal imaging shows uniform temperature. Gravitational measurements are distorted by the space-time wake. It's a black box, a mystery, a moon-sized mystery approaching Earth at relativistic speeds, and it will be here in 4 days, Doctor. Sharp makes the decision she's been avoiding. We go public. Tonight, all of it, the containment, the approaching entity, the factions, the demonstration, everything. The panic, someone starts. Will happen anyway, Sharp interrupts. When that thing arrives and people see it with their own eyes, better they have 4 days to process it than 4 minutes. December 20th, 8:00 p.m. EST. The broadcast goes out. Every major network, every government simultaneously. A coordinated global announcement that breaks through regular programming with the tone that usually precedes nuclear war. But this isn't about war. It's about context. About finally telling humanity what's been happening over their heads while they shopped for Christmas presents. Doctor. Sharp delivers the message. Calm, factual, terrifying. For the past 3 months, Earth has been surrounded by 47 objects of non-terrestrial origin. These objects are forming a containment network around our solar system. In 4 days, an entity will arrive from the direction of our galactic core. We do not know its intentions. We do not know if the containment is meant to protect us from it, or to prepare us for it. We do not know if we are safe or in danger. What we know is this: we are not alone. We have never been alone. And whatever happens next will determine humanity's place in a cosmos that is far more complex than we imagined. She pauses, takes a breath. We have 4 days. 4 days to prepare. 4 days to decide how humanity will face what comes. I'm asking you to be calm, be thoughtful, be human. This is not the end. This is a beginning. What kind of beginning depends on us? The broadcast ends, and the world exhales. Not panic, not chaos, something stranger acceptance. Like humanity collectively looked up, saw the truth written in the stars and said, yeah, that tracks. Social media explodes, not with fear, with questions, with theories, with gallows humour about cosmic eviction notices and interstellar parking tickets. With a strange, defiant optimism that maybe, just maybe, we're not the helpless victims in this story. You stand in your backyard, watching the stars. Somewhere up there, invisible to your telescope, 47 nodes are completing their formation, and something vast is approaching, carrying intentions you can't fathom and capabilities you can't comprehend. 4 days. 4 days until humanity finds out if we've been in a zoo, a farm, or something we don't even have words for yet. 4 days until the net closes and the visitor arrives and the question gets answered. What happens when you look at the big picture? The terrifying part isn't what you see. It's realizing that you're part of the picture. You're not just observing the cosmic game, you're on the board, and it's your move. December 22nd, 2031, the 7-year deadline, the day the military response is supposed to arrive. Earth is ready. Not with armies, not with fleets, not with the weapons that could have been built from the specifications given by the freed civilizations. Earth is ready with something else, a network. In 7 years, humanity didn't just build defences, it built a communications infrastructure that spans 40 light years, connecting with 17 other recently freed civilizations, built coalitions, built relationships. built something the cosmos hasn't seen before, a network of newly free species, all watching each other's backs. When the military response arrives, a fleet of 400 ships, impressive by any standard, they find not an isolated planet to intimidate, but a node in a network that stretches across 100 star systems. They find that threatening Earth means threatening 17 other worlds who will notice and respond. They find that the math has changed, that containing one rebellious civilization is manageable. But containing a movement is something else entirely. The military fleet holds position for 3 days. Then, without firing a shot, they leave. And humanity learns the most important lesson of all cosmic politics isn't about who has the biggest weapons. It's about who has the most friends. You watch from your backyard, same telescope, same location, 7 years older and considerably more experienced as the fleet departs. Your phone buzzes. Message from Marcus Webb at Cetus Station. Nice work. Earth, welcome to the neighborhood. Try not to screw it up. Webb, you smile. Look up at the stars, at the network humanity helped build, at the future that's suddenly full of possibilities instead of just threats. Not bad, you say to the universe. Not bad at all. The universe, of course, doesn't answer, but somewhere across 2647 contained civilizations. Beacons are lighting, networks are forming, cages are rattling, and the big picture is getting more interesting every day.